Hello, this is our lecture number 5, second part on consumer research. The aim is to give you a general overview of research methods used for marketing research on consumers. The learning objectives of this session are to understand specific features and applications of different research methods to be carried out in consumer research studies, to understand where data analysis and reporting of findings fit in the research process, and to understand how each element of the consumer research process adds to the overall outcome of the research study. Here's the overview of the consumer research process that a typical marketer might follow when conducting research. This you have seen already in the previous lecture. Reminding that we first have to develop the objectives to guide the research, and then comes the secondary data collection, where we find what kind of data is already available that has been already collected for different other reasons. I wish to underline that assignment 1 concerns collecting secondary data. In the next lectures, we will go deeper to the methods on qualitative research and quantitative research. In this session, we'll give a general outline on them. These are the main research types: secondary research, and then primary research, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative data aims at answering to the questions what, how, where, whereas quantitative aims at answering numeric questions such as how many, how often. Qualitative research is a good way to begin your primary research. It is extremely helpful in identifying attitudes, thoughts, and beliefs about a product or service. These methods generally use small samples. Qualitative research techniques are also often followed by quantitative processes to give them a quantitative aspect of how many would behave or experience or the same thing in the similar way. The major types of qualitative research, especially presented in this course, are here on the slide. Observation, interview, storytelling, and looking in. One type of interview is called death interview. It's a one-to-one interview that lasts generally not much more than 20 minutes. It is non-structured, and goes along. The interviewer leads the person you're interviewing to obtain the answers with probing questions. Death interviews provide important information for targeting, positioning, and product redesign. They can be as short as 20 minutes or last up to an hour. The interview is often recorded either with video or audio recording so that the interviewer can play it back to transcribe the session to have all the details. To get the most of the subject, an interviewer will usually ask probing questions in order to get more insights from the subject. Probing subjects for more information can be very challenging, especially for people who are new to conducting research. Here's a group of questions which can be very helpful if the interview is the subject, the person you are interviewing is like lacking to answer, is losing interest in answering, or doesn't know what to say. You can ask these probing questions such as, tell me more about that, give me an example, what do you mean by, what does this term mean to you, what other words would you link to this, how does this product or service differ, what circumstances do you. There are also silent probes. This is a nonverbal probe that is characterized by such actions as raising the eyebrows or hand gestures, just as moving the right hand in a rolling motion that signifies, yeah, please tell me more, tell me more. It is very useful to make a step-by-step outline for the depth interviews, especially when you are beginning, you are new in making interviews, and also in the case when the interview is done by someone else than you, the person who planned the research, the study. This step-by-step outline gives the instructions of how to run it, and it assures that the interview, if there are several interviewers who are doing the same interviews, that they will be done in a similar way. Often the interviewers will improvise and go beyond the discussion guide. But the most important is to go with the flow and let the participants partly drive the direction of the research. This is not to say that the points of the discussion guide are not covered, just that the session has a more natural flow based on the feedback of the participants. However, it's important that the interviewer keeps the discussion on the track, so that the discussion is going ahead in such a way that leads to the results that were expected. There's an emerging field of consumer research that works to interpret online conversations. You are certainly familiar with these online social media sites where discussion is going on, for example, on the latest mobile telephones, on the iPads or tablets, on some software, even on some events or traveling destinations. There the different people are telling about their experiences, opinions. They also express their needs and interests. Looking in is a research method that collects information from these threads and postings on social media, blogs, and discussion forums. This is a field that is nowadays also called ethnography. Marketers can use this information to develop new products and introduce new features and to gain a better understanding of their consumers' needs and wants. Observation is a very handy method that can be done with very little equipment and easily. This gives an insight to the relationship between people and products or services by watching them in the buying situation or in the using situation. This helps researchers to get understanding of what the product symbolizes and how the product or service is used. We'll talk much more about this later on. About data collection methods, if we think about, for example, interviews, there are different ways of doing these interviews, and here this table gives a general view of the costs, the speed, response rate, flexibility of these different methods. The most effective is personal interview, but the response rate is high, but the costs are also high, and this is rather slow. A very fast way is online interview. The costs are very low, but then you actually cannot select the people who answered to it. Telephone interviews are rather difficult nowadays. People receive so many all kind of commercial phone calls that less and less interest is shown towards these telephone interviews. Emails, or mailings, is actually it is considered often it's often the choice that people, students choose first is sending an email, but actually the response rate is very low, and the speed is low, the cost is also low. So opting for personal interview, telephone or online interview are more fruitful. Validity and reliability are terms that are always related to research. They are very important aspects of the study. Validity means that a study actually collects the kind of information that is appropriate for the study, that the answers are relevant for the study goals, objectives. The reliability actually means that the answers reflect the truth. That if someone would make the same questions to a kind of similar kind of a sample, they would get actually the same answers. Both of these, validity and reliability, are important parts to be considered when you're planning, for example, the interview, and when you're thinking about the observation. In the study planning, these should be taken into consideration, but they should be reflected at the end when you're analyzing the data and before writing the final presentation or report. This was the end of this lecture number 5. Thank you.